risking death to escape war and persecution. Last year, 330,000 people sought asylum in Europe. About a quarter received protection. New plans aim to revamp the asylum process. But what difference will the EU's measures make? We've been to Greece, widely seen to have no proper asylum process. You may find some of the images in Paul Hackett's report disturbing.
A graveyard along one of Europe's most beautiful island holiday hotspots. These are the bodies of 7 Syrian refugees who drowned off the Greek coast of Lesbos in March trying to cross from Turkey. For those who do actually make it, the future upon arrival in Greece is far from certain. Hit by economic crisis, the Greek asylum system is in chaos, unable to cope with the increasing human tide. We've just seen what appears to be 30 refugees enter the Coast Guard here in Mytilene. The authorities will not let us go and film inside. Consequently, we don't know what reception conditions these people will receive and whether they will be even given basics like food, water and shelter. We spoke to some young Afghan men being held in detention by the Coast Guard. They told us they had gone on hunger strike because the authorities had done nothing for them since they arrived.
This is 35 days that we are here, and they are not asked about us that what's your problem and what is...
Yeah, and you?
I'm also like this.
How old are you?
I am 21 years old.
Yeah, 21, okay, and you're from Afghanistan?
Yes, I'm also from Afghanistan.
And how long have you been here?
I'm from 35 days here.
Activists on Lesbos say the authorities refuse to feed or house the refugees and are failing to adhere to international law.
The fact is that there is no reception conditions here. There is no reception condition for human beings in the island.
With no proper reception centre, refugees frequently find themselves in a nightmarish game of ping-pong between the police and Coast Guard, who refuse to deal with their asylum claims. The police insisted they need more EU help.
No,
I'm not happy at all. But the Greek police are not responsible for this. The orders from the local prosecutors say the Coast Guard are responsible for arresting these people, the illegal immigrants. We do a great deal. But it's hard, and I'd say that we need more support from the EU.
The numbers detained in Greece at sea have increased 10 times in the last year. That is largely attributed to tighter controls along Greece's land border with Turkey.
There must be radical changes in Greece. They must start from zero or below zero. I mean, here there is no asylum-seekers system. There is nothing.
Authorities told us a new reception centre on the island for refugees is planned this year, but were unable to say when this would be up and running.
With me now to discuss the Common European Asylum System is the EU Commissioner for Home Affairs, Cecilia Malmström, and Britain's former Home Secretary, Charles Clarke, who remains active on migration and asylum issues. Thank you both very much for joining us. Commissioner, are you ashamed of what's happening in Greece?
Of course, it is not worthy of Europe to receive people like this. I have also been in Greece many times, and I have seen the suffering of the people, the inability of the Greek society to deal with this influx. And we should, of course, not have conditions like that.
This is happening on your watch. You know, children, families, victims of torture are being detained for up to 18 months in squalid conditions. Is there nothing the EU can do?
Well, we do a lot. We finance the whole building up of the system. We are also helping the Greek authorities to set up a whole plan to setting up an asylum system, because it has never really existed, and a border control system. We are training the border guards. We are helping them to train people so that people can have access to the system. We are giving them humanitarian assistance. The whole Europe is there, actually, with money or with assistance, with a lot of international agencies as well. So we are doing a lot, but of course the ultimate responsibility is Greece.
So if the ultimate responsibility responsibility is Greece. Is Greece doing it on purpose? Because this has been going on for years.
I think it's a systemic problem in the Greek public service system. There are a lot of very serious issues. Unfortunately, the attitude demonstrated by the Greek police officer in your film, I just think is buck-passing. It's no good just to say it's nothing to do with me, it's got to be somebody else. The Greek system has to take responsibility. Now, they're entitled, and quite reasonably, to ask for whatever support they can get from the rest of the European Union. But the starting point has to be that the Greek government, the Greek system, operates efficiently and effectively. And the single most important thing is to get a rapid decision on an asylum case, because the kind of time period you described is completely unacceptable. And people need quick and accurate decisions quickly as to who's entitled to asylum and who isn't.
Well, if Greece isn't taking responsibility, which it clearly isn't, because again this issue has been going on for years, they're not supervising their borders adequately. Should they be kicked out of Schengen?
I'm told that despite the picture that you just showed, the position has improved a little bit in recent months. But they have to take it very seriously. And personally, I would say at the bottom line, if they're not prepared to carry out their responsibilities properly, then they should be slung out of Schengen.
In June, it's hoped the Common European Asylum System is going to come into force. What difference can it make to Greece?
Well, in the short term, it will not make any difference, because Greece has to build it up all from the beginning, and that process is ongoing. But it will make a lot of difference in the longer term for Greece and for asylum seekers in general, because today it's a little bit of a lottery. So with the new system in place and the new rules in place, we would have harmonised rule of reception, of procedures, of the administration, of the qualification grounds and so on, which will make the system much safer, much transparent, much more humane and much more fundamental rights-based.
But this is partly Europe's fault as well, what's going on in Greece, because they're hamstrung by austerity. They can't employ new people. Migrants and asylum seekers aren't legally allowed to leave Greece because they can't register their asylum claims there. So the system is faulty. The EU system is faulty and has made Greece's task pretty much impossible.
Well, yes and no. We have given them exceptions from the austerity claims, so they can actually employ some people in the asylum system, and they are doing right now. They are getting people to build up an asylum system so that people can, as was said, be screened, so they can have their asylum
20
system.
people are being screened a week.
Yes, it's too little. Of course, I'm not saying that it's enough, but we are slowly getting a system in place. But there's huge amount of work to do, of course.
But at the moment, there is chronic mistrust between EU member states, particularly when it comes to borders, a lot of antagonism there. Do you think there's going to be the solidarity in Europe to actually make this work?
Very, very difficult. Immigration is right at the top of the political agenda, but because people are frightened of the nationalist ultra-right-wing parties in their particular countries, in some of which have got so far as to getting into government, even for short periods, they're very unwilling to take risks in this area. Now, I think that's extremely short-sighted, because I think it's much more risky to not address this problem, if I can put it like this, than to address the problem. And I think what the people of Europe want is a system which is well-governed and they can have confidence that the right decisions are being taken quickly.
Are you going to take countries who don't adhere to the Common European Asylum System to the European Courts of Justice?
Of course we are. We have not formally decided yet. There will be a vote and decision in June. And despite the biggest economic crisis since the 30s, despite all these populist movements, these xenophobic movements that are there, and they have made our efforts very, very difficult, member states have now agreed.
Syria is also a big worry. Let's just listen to this soundbite from the UNHCR in Greece.
If we have the bad scenario of massive movements towards Europe, of people fleeing Syria, which I hope it will not happen, but this is the moment to think about, and not when it will become true. That means a nightmare if Europe is not prepared. I believe that there needs to be mobility, flexibility between European countries, and this is something that they have to consider seriously today, even if it's an hypothesis, and not when it really happens. It will be too late.
So, too late if action isn't taken now. What concrete action has been taken?
Well, we are in constant dialogue with UNHCR to follow what's happening on the ground, and so far all the people who have fled Syria are in the neighbourhood. For the moment, very few people have actually today come to Europe.
At the beginning of the report, we saw Syrians washed up on the shore of Greece, so people
horrible.
Are coming
people
now.
Are coming, but there are 2 million people who are refugees from Syria, and not even 40,000 have come to Europe. So these have to be, and they are taken care of, they are given protection.
Member states are reluctant generally to accept asylum seekers. I think the figures for last year, 5,500 asylum seekers were resettled in Europe, whereas that figure for the US was 60,000. Why is Europe so reticent to help?
There's a massive confusion about the phrase asylum seeker. I think most people in most of our countries completely understand in the kind of circumstances we're describing in Syria or Afghanistan that people are genuinely fleeing for their lives and that we have a duty, and people, I think, really welcome that duty to try and protect people in those circumstances. But there's also a large number of people who apply to come under asylum conditions into countries in Europe who are not actually in those crisis circumstances and are using it as a channel in an otherwise controlled immigration system.
Finally, just going back to the situation in Syria, should Greece be bypassed? Because we are going to expect thousands of people coming through. Should Greece just be bypassed in this situation?
No, if the amount raises and Greece is really under a lot of pressure for Syria, of course we will need to discuss different measures to assist and to alleviate them. But for the moment, there are people coming to Greece, but that is not the biggest recipient.
Charles
The only thing I'd add is that at the end of the day, I think it really is a philosophy of despair to think that we can bypass Greece out of this system. Far and away the best solution is for Greece to sort it out and to establish an asylum system that is fair and works effectively. And the question will then be, will the EU, through the Commission or the EU member states, put in the support they need? And there's a discussion to be had about that. But a precondition is the Greek government saying we're really going to get hold of this. And I think that's the problem which still remains there.
Thank you very much for this discussion.
Thank you.
Last year, thousands of Syrians arrived in Greece. Only 152 were able to apply for asylum. Just 2 of them were granted refugee status. What do you think about that? Should Europe be doing more than it is to help refugees in countries like Greece? Contact us via social media. In the meantime, we return next month.